Hello everyone, my name is Vinod and we are going to look at a very interesting topic today, Metaverse as a service. So Metaverse has this potential to change our world in a way that electricity changed our world, right? That's the kind of potential that Metaverse has. So let's get started. So in order to understand how Metaverse is going to change our lives, let's go back in time and look at how mobile phones evolved over time, right? So in the beginning of times, way back in 1945, 1946, around that time, mobile phones used to be huge, clunky, right? So they need to have a transmitter and receiver like this, which would be placed on the boat, and people can only take calls from the car itself. Kind of car phone is what we had, and these phones are anything but smart, isn't it? So
Remember the guy with the magic wand made rabbits disappear? Well, seems he got a job at Ericsson. Invented this magic wand. Now he wants electronic notepads, mobile phones, organizers, and stuff to disappear. You see, the Ericsson R380 is all in one. With WAP, email, and a personal organizer. Rabbits not included. The new Ericsson R380. We call it a smartphone.
So as you can see, in 1994, almost 3 decades later, the first smartphone was invented. And this smartphone had a touchscreen. It had WAP, which is like the precursor of today's internet. It had email feature and few other apps. And for that reason, this was the first phone to have apps built into it. So this happened in 1994. Today, if you have to buy this phone in the time from the time the phone was released, it would cost you something like $1,800 corrected for inflation. Not bad for the first smartphone, isn't it? Yeah, but back then phones were still boring because it wasn't made in color, and that changed with Siemens S10, which was the first color phone that was introduced. But still, phones were boring back in the time because we were still living in Web 1.0, which was like kind of a read-only internet, and from 2G, the migration to 3G started in 1998, which means your internet connectivity started getting a bit better. And some of you might remember Nokia 9210, which was released in the year 2000, was one of the first phones to have an inbuilt memory which you can use, right? Like customers can use. So this was the beginning of like what we are seeing today. And this was around the time the Palm OS and the Palm phones also got introduced. But the very important thing happened sometime in 2002 when 3G standards were becoming adopted worldwide. Now that means that the world is currently able to access 3G in a way that it was never possible before. And as a consequence of that, phones like BlackBerry Quark started getting released, and which had its own web browsing and email and more functional in a way. Right? Those were the days of GPRS. And once the 3G got well adopted, there was better phones, and Nokia 6630 was one such phone. In fact, I had this phone back in the days, and this was one of the first truly global phone, which means that it can be used across the countries. And when I used to use that, I can download MP3 files, I can download music, videos, and then have a browser, have a file browser where I can access files from the phone itself, and also install applications whenever I want by downloading jar files from the internet and then install and use it. Right. So this wasn't possible largely until this point, and that was a game changer in itself. But still, something was missing, and it was like it's not a coherent experience yet, and that's because technology was still evolving. In 2005, two remarkable things happened. Number one, Google acquired Android, which was a touchscreen operating system meant for cameras, basically. And that company was acquired by Google. And Apple acquired a company called Fingerworks. This Fingerworks is a company that invented this capacitive multi-touch technology, and they were applying it on their capacitive multi-touch peripherals. And acquiring this is a game changer for Apple. Why? You will know in a bit. And in 2007, the first capacitive touchscreen phone got released, and this came with LG, right? LG released this. It wasn't multi-touch though; it was the first capacitive touchscreen. But a few days later, this happened.
an iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. An iPod, a phone. Are you getting it? And we are calling it iPhone.
This moment revolutionized the smartphone industry. It was such a defining moment because for the first time ever, there is a company that treated the smartphone as powerful as a desktop, but at the same time gave it the right treatment so that it is not clunky and very difficult to use. So this was a defining moment for the smartphone industry. And once this happened, right about the same time, coincidentally, I don't want to get into how it happened, but then coincidentally, Android's OS also came in, and HTC Dream was the first phone with Android OS. And then the second disruption happened, wherein in the year 2008, iPhone released the App Store. It needs to be kept in mind that until the App Store was released, one full year after the original iPhone the very first iPhone was released, there was only 16 apps in all of iPhone, right? Every iPhone's had the maximum of 16 apps. So, but after this happened, you know how many apps were there, right? So the millions and millions of apps today, all thanks to having an app store and then, activating the creator economy is what they call it, right? So, and in the following year, 4G came into existence, which means now you have faster speeds, GPS becomes more reliable, all those things happen. Now, from that point on, I'm not going to go in detail simply because everyone knows what happened after that. From that point till today, all you're seeing is some incremental innovations. Now, we need to think about what happened here with smartphones. So there was a lot of disruptions and developments and new kind of technological innovation that was happening. But it was Apple who brought in all these inventions together, packaged it, and then made it as a disruptive innovation. And it didn't do it alone. There were technological macroeconomic scenarios that helped them. For example, the evolution of 2G to 3G to 4G. Apple couldn't have actually made these networks. It happened at that time, and they were able to, tag on to it. Right. Similarly, the resistive to capacitive touchscreen migration is extremely instrumental because with resistive touch, you have to press hard to, make things work. And you couldn't have had a touchscreen interface to type with a resistive touch. It was very difficult back then. And then Apple was genius to bring in the App Store, and that truly made it work. Okay. So why are we talking about this? Because today we are again in the year 2007. The Apple moment for Metaverse is here. That means the hardware, the network, the infrastructure layer, every single component that is needed for building the Metaverse is already here. And to make this deal sweeter, all big corporations are pouring in billions and billions of dollars. And that is very important for any new technology to get to the customer, right? So we know that Mark Zuckerberg renamed his company Facebook as, Meta. And many people, think that Metaverse belongs to Mark Zuckerberg. It's not. Let me clear that right away. Metaverse is much bigger than Mark Zuckerberg and every other billionaire or trillionaire you would think about, right? So, you need to understand that Metaverse is already here because the Gen Z is already into it. For example, when research was conducted, more than 60% of Gen Zers said that they would want to be in the virtual world, exploring the favorite brands of their favorite brands basically in the Metaverse. And for example, if you see, there is one of these metaverse. So metaverses are many universes. You have many metaverses. There's not a single metaverse, right? And in one of these metaverse, there is the famous musician called Snoop Dogg, right? So the Snoop Dogg's land was there, and somebody bought a land beside that. Somebody wanted to live beside Snoop Dogg's virtual land, so they bought that piece of land for almost $500,000. And you can think about just think about that for a minute. Someone bought a piece of land in a virtual world for $450,000, right? Think about it. Yeah. Okay, now let's get into what is Metaverse. So the Metaverse is a massively scaled and interoperable network of real-time rendered 3D virtual worlds, which can be experienced synchronously and persistently by an effectively unlimited number of users with an individual sense of presence and with continuity of data such as identity, history, entitlements, objects, communication, and payments. I know what you're thinking. I'm not defining book here. So let's forget the definition for a moment. I'm not going to scare you with the definition anymore. Let's keep it simple. What is Metaverse? So in its simplest form, Metaverse is nothing but interconnected experiences, right? So think of a virtual world to start with, wherein you are completely immersed and everything you know in the physical world is also there, right? That's how it starts today. But in the future, you don't have to be in a virtual world. The real world will be augmented with virtual reality elements in such a way that your wall will completely transform itself through light elements, like how you have projector today, right? You project something onto the wall and the wall becomes a TV. That's a 2D projector today. What if you use a 3D projector? It's called a holographic 3D projection. Once that technology takes shape and then you project things onto space, your room can become anything that you wish. So that's the power of Metaverse. So Metaverse is nothing but just interconnected experiences, which is brought in through applications, device and products, tools and infrastructure. Think of how the internet transformed our lives, right? So once the internet came into existence, every single company in this world had to have a .com website. They were forced to do so. And similarly, when the smartphones went mainstream, every single company that had to have a space in this world had to have a mobile app. Right? So that's the kind of impact Metaverse will also have. And we talked about the experiences. In order to create the experience, you need to have discovery and a creator economy. I'll go deep into this in the following step. So let's first understand what Metaverse is, right? So the elements of a Metaverse. Metaverse is persistent, which means it exists irrespective of if you reset. It doesn't pass or reset. For example, if you are in a game, the moment you leave the game, your existence in the game ceases to exist. Whereas in the Metaverse, it will continue to exist. It will be the digital twin of you, and the world will continue to exist, and your existence there will also be there. Similarly, it's synchronous and live. Let's say you and me are friends, and then we go to a coffee shop. And in the Metaverse, right? In the Metaverse, let's say we're going to a coffee shop and then having a very nice discussion. And one of our friends happened to come to the same coffee shop in the Metaverse. He would be able to see us sitting in a corner and then having a conversation, and he can come and join in that conversation. Right? So the point is, it is live and it is synchronous. It's the same reality that exists for everybody in the Metaverse. It's unlimited. In today's world, anything digital and virtual has a limit. For example, if you're in a Zoom call today, you can have only so many number of users, after which it has to be converted into a webinar, because having multi-party active discussion is close to impossible today. Fully functional economy. Today, you can create, own, invest in land, sell land, and do some activity and get rewarded for it. That's all possible in the Metaverse. It's pervasive, which means it's digital and it's physical. It's physical through things like holographic 3D projection. It's physical through mixed reality. And what happens in the physical world will also be happening in the digital world. It will be connected. It will be pervasive. That's what it means. It's interoperable. Today, if you have your photos uploaded in Facebook, you cannot download that image with the metadata in its fullest form and then migrate it to Google Photos. It's not straightforward, right? Because it's not interoperable. But in the Metaverse, in the decentralized Metaverse, everything is interoperable, which means your digital avatar that you will create can travel from one Metaverse, like say, for example, Decentraland to Sandbox to something else, right? So it's totally possible. Distributed creator economy. Metaverse is distributed creator economy. That means that today a single person or the CEO controls an organization, whereas in the Metaverse, it is controlled by a group of people created. It is created and operated by contributors like you and me, right? So, and the method through which it is done is called a DAO, 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 decentralized autonomous organization. This is more like having a apartment association, wherein like all the people who has a stake in the metaverse, the people who created it, they will have their own votes, and then they vote to decide what needs to be in the metaverse, how much land to sell, when to have an event, and who should be called. All that will be done in a democratic way, and not a single person owns it. So that's what distributed created economy means. Now that we have seen what is metaverse, today's metaverse experience are little bit of a joke, I would say. So what many companies do is they have their own augmented reality experience, maybe virtual reality experience, or maybe they have a game. Now they call all of that as metaverse. It comes under metaverse umbrella, right? But in reality, you have extended reality experience is the umbrella term. And under that, you have augmented reality, virtual reality, metaverse, and things like that, right? So it's kind of everything that people have in this AR VR segment is all rebranded as metaverse. So which is why we don't feel that this is useful, right? But in the near future, like which is in the near future is like a year or two later, you would have this Web 3.0 in place, which is a decentralized internet. Today, internet is largely controlled by Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and some big corporations, right? Once the digital autonomous organization takes over, entire internet becomes decentralized, and also the big companies will play a role. I'm not saying they'll go away. They will be responsible for some big innovations and breakthrough innovations as well, and they will also contribute. And that way, in the far future, which could be a few years from now, you will not be able to distinguish between what is digital and what is physical. That is how immersive the metaverse will be. Now, when I say this, many people will be like, oh my God, that is so evil, that is so bad, and all that. It will be as evil as the smartphones today, but it will be better. It will be gooder in a way, right? Because you can, in the purely metaverse world, you can still remove your metaverse digital element, keep it aside, and then go for a trek if you want. But the larger question is, will you actually do it, right? You may not want to do it because of the kind of experience you will get. And more importantly, we talk so much about metaverse, but future is anyone's guess, right? You can only look back in time and say, hey, yeah, this we could have seen this coming. But now we can only go from one technological breakthrough, another technological breakthrough, some billionaire pouring in a lot of money leading to an experience. That's how evolution usually happens. Now we have seen what is metaverse and what it is today. Let's see what is not just metaverse. Like today, there are some pieces and pieces of things that is branded as metaverse, but let's look at few of them. So virtual worlds. So virtual worlds, Age of Empire is not a virtual world, it's a virtual game. These kind of games and virtual worlds are not just metaverse. These are just a game, or it's a virtual world. Because for example, in Age of Empires, you have different characters. All of them are AI, artificial intelligence based characters that moves around based on predefined rules and all that. It is synthetic, it is fictional, and it is designed for a single purpose, right? So that is why that is not metaverse. A virtual space like Second Life. Second Life was introduced in the year 2003, and that's a place where you can have a second life itself. You'll have your own avatar and things like that. That is one of the closest contender to metaverse. But the only reason why I'm saying it is not pure metaverse is because metaverse in nature is decentralized, whereas virtual space is owned by a person, and it's a closed space in that way. Tomorrow you can be wiped off Second Life if the CEO of Second Life wants to. That's not how metaverse operates. Metaverse is not a virtual reality experience like what Oculus Rift will give you today, because providing a sense of presence in a virtual world in itself is not metaverse. Metaverse is much more than that. Then metaverse is not a digital and virtual economy, because such things are already there. Games like World of Warcraft and games like that had a functioning economy, and wherein real people will use real money, buy digital goods, and then trade it to another real person for real currency, right? So those kind of things existed before, and I'm not saying that's not metaverse simply because it existed before, but it's to say that this digital and virtual economy is what is metaverse is not right. It's an element of the metaverse. Then metaverse is not a game, because you have spaces in the metaverse where you will have your life. You will meet with social your friends. You will just be there, observing things and things like that. So it's not just a game. So it's not like a virtual experience like theme park, right? It's much more, it's much more than that. It's a world in itself. For example, if it's a theme, if Disney World now is working on a theme park in Metaverse, but in the real sense, how the Metaverse will operate is there could be a theme park which will be created by creators like many of us, and the kind of rights will be unlimited, controlled by developers, and the experience will be completely different. And finally, it's not an app store. So, it's not a user generated content platform. Today, Facebook and YouTube are user generated content platform, and even though the content is uploaded by the creators, the platform owns the content, like YouTube and Facebook. Whereas in the metaverse, people will own things, and the creators will have a better say. They will not have to give a percentage to to a single person who runs metaverse. Right? So let me just walk you through a metaverse journey. We are going into Decentraland. Decentraland is one of the decentralized metaverses. So if you want to understand what Decentraland is, in Decentraland, you and me can go and buy pieces of digital land. And in order to purchase that, you need a currency, just like dollars and rupees and euros. The currency in Decentraland is called Mana, which is based on Ethereum blockchain. Now, using this currency, you can buy a piece of land, and then using the tools provided, you can build a store there, and you can also build it outside and then import it. But the point is, you can build stores and games and bank and things like that. So I'm going to walk you through two experiences: one retail store from DressX, another one is from JP Morgan. That's me. That's my avatar in Decentraland. I'm just walking on a road. In fact, jogging on a road, getting into a shopping district called Metajuku. In Metajuku district, this is a DressX store, and the DressX store, there is this video. The storefront has a video placard. So let's play a video. So basically, they are showing their mobile app using which you can buy this kind of headgear, and it will show it in virtual reality. Yeah, so they have shown us how it works, but now let's get into the store. Yeah, the store has some headgears and some dresses as well. I'm not going to be able to wear that, so let me look at this blazer. Yeah, now I clicked on this blazer, and it basically takes me to dressx.com. Now that means I'm going out of Decentraland to go into this website. Yeah, see, it took me to a normal website, DressX normal today world web 2.0 experience. And this blazer in itself is a digital blazer, which means that I cannot buy, even if I buy it, I cannot take it home or something. Rather, I should upload my photo here. And once I upload, DressX will fit it into me and then send a photo like this. Right, and it will come as a non-fungible token, which means I am the only owner of this particular blazer. Right, so now we come back to Decentraland. Across the road, you can see that there is an office of JP Morgan. Let's get to it. Yeah, go. Yeah, that's a real tiger there. I mean, a digital real tiger. As you can see behind us is the DressX shop that we came out from. Now let's get into the. I'm kind of thinking, should I get in there? There's a digital tiger, right? I'm not scared of it. So, okay. So this is what JP Morgan says upon entry. They say there is no financial or other professional advice, products or services available in the JP Morgan office. That means it's only a showpiece right now. Yeah, let's go in and see what's there. They have a wall hanging here which talks about the timeline. So if I click on it, it says open document. I'm not going to open the doc. Hey, tiger, get out of the way. Yeah. So there is this video. There is this timeline. I'm not going to play that. Here there is some Space Bridge, one of their products. Let me click. Yeah. So they have this video. I have pre-recorded this whole thing experience. So it's a video, and in that video we are seeing Decentraland, and in Decentraland there is this JP Morgan office, within which there is a video that I just played. Funny, isn't it? Yeah, so let's get to the first floor. They have a first floor. Let's go and see what's in there. In the first floor, you have more wall hangings, and there's a table. And on the table, you have some books. Okay, I'm not going to play any more videos here. Let's click on one of these books and probably read it, right? Let's click. Yeah. So clicking on it again takes me out. It takes me to JP Morgan website. And what I see here is a book on cryptocurrency markets, something like a crypto 101. Right? It's a normal document that you have. So you might have felt I spoke so much about metaverse, future, all that, and it's a very underwhelming experience if you think of it today. That's because it's the beginning of metaverse. But in few months to few years time, the experience will be so immersive that we'll be completely into it, right? So that's how it's going to be. So yeah. Now we already talked about what is metaverse. Now in the future you'll have companies will start providing services on metaverse, and that is what I called as metaverse as a service. I'm not going to again bore you with the definition here, but metaverse as a service is similar to cloud as a service or anything like that, wherein one or many of the components of the metaverse itself will be will be built by some other company, and they will give it to you as a service so that you can quickly build and scale your experiences to your customers or other businesses. And at the cost that is a fraction of what it would be if you were to build it from scratch. Now, these are the components of metaverse, and every component here can be converted into a service. Right? The very first component here is the network and infrastructure layer. As you see, the network layer is 5G and 6G. 6G, of course, is not here. 5G is just starting, which means the reason I'm talking about 5G is that once 5G comes into existence, the latency will become much, much better, that you will only have few milliseconds of delay the moment you do something, right? So today it is much, much worse, which means the moment you click on a button, when things has to go to the cloud and then come back, it takes like 3 to 5 milliseconds or even more, and that spoils the experience. And a large amount of data needs to be transported and all that. So all that requires a much speeder internet. So 5G will take care of it. Cloud is already here and it's getting better. And you need graphic processing units because a lot needs to happen in the metaverse, which is all similar to a game, and that requires a graphic processing unit. And another element of the infrastructure is to build interfaces that works with the human body, and it's called mind interfaces. So when you think of something, it has to happen in the metaverse, right? So those kind of things are still under work. That's part of the hardware as well. It's called neural hardware. So, and other than that, in the hardware layer, you have smart glasses, mobile wearables, all that is there, and someone needs to build it. Microsoft and those kind of companies are already working on it. Then you have the decentralization layer. This is a very important layer, especially the blockchain element of it. 10 years back, when the blockchain triggered this cryptocurrency market, it took the financial industry by storm. Simply because if I have to transfer some money to you in the cryptocurrency world, I can transfer without involving a reserve bank or a bank where I'm keeping the money, right? And that way it's a peer-to-peer money transfer. Nobody else is involved. That gives you a lot of freedom, and all the brokerage and all those things are gone away. Right? So the privacy and the control is put back on the customer. Right? So that is the foundation of cryptocurrency. Now, the foundation of metaverse is also the same blockchain, which means everything is decentralized, starting from servers to the experience to creation. Everything is decentralized. That means it's more democratized, right? So that is the power here. The rest is all basic. And spatial computing, because we are talking about a gaming kind of a real world experience, you need to have a bunch of engines like 3D engines. You need to have a virtual reality engine, and these engines are nothing but pieces of codes that will create the graphics that you will see feel very real, right? So that's the whole thing here. And then on top of that is the creator economy. So the creator economy is all the design tools and the asset markets that you can think of that needs to be built, so that on top of that, there could be other things that can be built. So now I know it's kind of sounding very abstract, but think of it like this. The App Store, in a way, what it did was it empowered people to build the mobile apps. for this different smartphones, right? So similarly, in the metaverse, you need to have tools to build the stores. For example, if you want to have the JP Morgan store that you saw, someone had to build it, right? So those design tools are required. So those are the creator economy stuff. And on top of that is a discovery. Today, you go to google.com and then find where is your nearest store. But in the metaverse, you need to find a different way of achieving that. How do you know what rating does a particular store have, right? Or a particular game has? Those kind of things needs to be built into the metaverse, and that's another layer. And ultimately, at the top is the experience. The kind of experience you will get when you go into the metaverse to work versus connecting with people versus watching a movie versus just doing a shopping, or just what meta life is like, just existing in the metaverse and then watching what everyone else is doing. It's like sitting by the Times Square and then watching what is happening around you, right? So things like that. All these can be converted into services, and each of this is being currently worked by different companies. And these are some of the companies that are already working on it. Here, I would like to talk about two things that I had previously just touched upon. One is decentralized metaverse, another one is centralized metaverse. Today, if Facebook, Google, all those companies are building metaverses, then those are called centralized metaverse because they have the ultimate control. Whereas the decentralized metaverses are built by decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAO, which is like community built. So that is, for some examples of that are Sandbox, Decentraland, Somnium Space, and things like that. And there are a bunch of tools that are being currently built by different companies to support the metaverse. Things like hardware, for example, Samsung has its own VR headset. We know Microsoft HoloLens, Oculus. So these are some of the things, some of the hardware being built right now. So let's quickly move on and see who is currently providing metaverse as a service. Right? Alibaba already has a cloud, and they call it as a metaverse solution. See, but if you ask me, this is again rebranded old stuff. For example, let's say they mentioned live streaming for e-commerce. So today, let's say we are friends, and then I am going to a website, and I want you to be with me while I do the shopping. So I am creating a live stream wherein you and me are connected with video, and then we browse through the website, and then I ask, what do you think about this t-shirt? And you say, not this color, you have a very bad taste of color, go for the other one. Now we have a conversation like that, and finally we pick a particular product. In order for this video transaction to happen, you need to have some protocols in place. For example, web RTC, right? The real-time communication. That is one of the protocol here. Developed by Google, it is open source, and that is built into this cloud, and then microservices and things like that. So now Alibaba provides this as a package, so you can easily build it in very little time. So, but still, this is not metaverse on the cloud, metaverse as a service. This is the precursor of that. Moving on, now is a good time to look at the metaverse journey, how it started. But the reason I kept it to the end is because, in a way, this is not the evolution of metaverse, it's the evolution of gaming industry itself, because of the nature of metaverse, right? In 2003, there is the Second Life, which was kind of the first metaverse that was released. But some people even talk about the 90s, where one of this novel was released, and the novel basically talks about what metaverse is all about. But the real tangible work started sometime in 2003 by Second Life. And then if you look at this timeline here, just pause this video for a moment and then watch this timeline. Everything here is just a game like PlayStation 3, Legends, League of Legends, Minecraft. We are only talking about acquisitions and building of new games until sometime in 2020. Of course, Decentraland released long time back. But in 2020, Decentraland truly became a decentralized metaverse and went global. And then Facebook renames itself as Meta, and that's how everyone gets to know there is something called Decentraland. So largely, it's a gaming evolution. Gaming industry is slowly becoming pervasive, and it's becoming non-gaming itself to become as metaverse. So these are some major companies that are in the metaverse space right now, are building metaverses. These companies are important because these are the companies that have shaped the Web 2.0, right? Without these companies, you cannot imagine internet today. So let's quickly look at Facebook. Facebook has their social graph firmly in place. So they know, what I mean by that is they clearly know how we start our day, what we do in the day, who we talk about, what actions we do until the point we go to sleep, and what we do even after sleep. is the kind of data that Meta today has, and they are going to use all of that data, build a virtual world, and build a deeper customer graph. And this customer graph will help the customers who are in that metaverse to have a very immersive experience. And in fact, because they're also in the commerce world, which is like they also have buying and selling part in the today's Facebook, they might even want to become the Amazon of metaverse, right? Their metaverse. Yeah. So with respect to Microsoft, they are very clear. They will be the work aspect of the metaverse. They are trying to bring in all the Microsoft Office elements, Teams and LinkedIn's and all of that into the metaverse, and then cement themselves as the work partner in the metaverse. Google, Amazon, and Apple are a bit secretive, but we know some content about that. Amazon could benefit in a very big way here because they could provide tools to build the metaverse components, and that could be hosted on their Amazon Web Services. And by doing so, they will make a lot of money here. Apart from that, Apple, we know, is a company that is known to build compelling products. This is the company that came up with iPod, iPhone, mouse, then the smartwatches and the AirPods today, right? So they are coming with the Apple's virtual reality headset sometime this year or probably sometime early next year. And once that comes in, the industry believes that metaverse will become mainstream. And in fact, down the line, there is talks that companies like Apple will come up with brain-computer interfaces, which means that once you are in the metaverse world, you don't have to move your hand or move a mouse or anything like that. As you think, you can give actions from your brain right away directly into this digital world. That's a bit scary, isn't it? But it's just convenience to take it to the next level. Okay, so for companies like TCS, ThoughtWorks, Infosys, IBM, Accenture, these are tech companies, right? What is in it for them in the metaverse? What kind of services will they provide? Can largely be defined as three big things: advisory, innovation, domain intensive solution. Advisory is nothing but today, if let's say I am running a apparel store, right? Maybe I'm Mintra. I want to be in the digital world, right? So advisory companies, business consulting firms, companies like Bain's or BCG, Boston Consulting Group, or ThoughtWorks, these are the companies who will come in and provide this advisory services. They'll say, okay, you are a Big Bazaar today in the physical world or a Mintra in the physical world today. How can you be in the metaverse? What kind of experience should you build? How should you personalize the whole experience in the metaverse? What components of the metaverse should you buy versus build? Right? So these are the some of the advisory services that will emerge. And then because metaverse itself is a very emerging technology and the world, innovation will play a very big role. You will have to try out multiple proof of concepts, proof of technologies, build accelerators, and in fact, build new business models as well. So all that is in take. So innovation as a service will be very critical for metaverse, and many companies will provide that. And lastly, domain intensive solutions, right? So you need to build experience centers. You need to build domain focused. Think of something like a retail store built in the metaverse, and some company can come up with everything you need to build a retail store in the metaverse by drag and drop, right? Today metaverses already provide that, but it is not specific to a particular domain. So some companies will start providing that as services. So for any company, the bottom line is you start by looking at your core and then slowly bring metaverse into the core, and then from there you start reimagining your entire company by keeping metaverse at your core, and finally carve ecosystems, right? And make completely transform your company. And these are some of the use cases in metaverse for retail. So there will be retail stores, there will be non-fungible tokens, this is digital assets like headgears that we just saw. This is Gucci's NFT. Similarly, merchandising is going to completely change, which means today to design a t-shirt from the inception ideation phase all the way to bringing it takes forever, right? So that timeline will reduce because they can experiment things in the metaverse itself and then release it to the customer. Finally, augmented operations, because everything is happening in the digital world, the store operations, warehouse, everything completely moves into the metaverse, and then the employees, the way employees work, everything will completely transform, and it will be completely reimagined. That's all I had. Thanks so much for listening in. I hope you learned something new today. Have a good time. Bye-bye.